I made the point as well that like the streaming content ought to be minor companion material to the films, which are the big tentpoles, and instead it's gone the other way, where you've got the streaming stuff as a flood and a deluge, and the film stuff is a trickle. So they got it round the wrong way. And I also made the point that it goes all the way back to the fact that there were no cool and interesting and enduring characters from the latest films, which means in the streaming content, they had to default back to all the characters we know, so they couldn't create any new ones. And so it's almost like the same Marvel dynamic where you have the big figures, and then you slip in, the cooler, new, and more generally female characters within it. And so it's just there's nothing going on in the streaming. There's nothing new. There's nothing exciting.
Certainly not for Star Wars, and it's actually like, did we end up in the worst timeline that they've actually like made Star Wars this pathetic and decrepit, like in that amount of time too? It's incredible. Yeah. I know for a fact they must be looking back thinking, like if only we hadn't hired that stupid Ryan Johnson. Because as much as we've all shat on TFA in retrospect, I still think they would have survived had they gone like a JJ trilogy or Colin Trevorrow trilogy. Like,
yeah,
there's so many ways. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Look, as someone that was obviously on board after TFA, like, I don't think I think there's not one single thing you can point to it's just bad. It's all bad. Everything they're doing, like, there is no excuse for Kenobi to be as bad as it was, considering you had Ewan McGregor and after they learned from their mistakes. So, because you screwed up when you had Han, Luke, and Leia. You had Mark Hamill, you had Carrie Fisher, you had Harrison Ford, and you screwed it up. Okay, fine, you screwed it up. And you couldn't redo that because obviously Carrie Fisher passed away. So then you get Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor to return for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you screwed it up even worse. It's like they can't learn from anything. So there's no scenario where I think you could go, if we would have done this right thing. I just think it was always, what it would have done is it probably would have lived a little bit longer and people wouldn't have, I think it would have realized it. Yeah, but it was always still going to go in the wrong direction.
Remember, at one point, we were going to have was it a Boba Fett movie directed by James Mangold? That would have been way better than the TV show that we got. Yeah. And like a Kenobi movie, I expect these things would have just been of higher quality than the absolute dipshittery we got from those TV shows. Like, Solo made them panic. I think it's all a big knock-on, right? And where's the first domino? It's like, it's clearly TFA. But it still feels like TLJ was the biggest domino. I don't know. Like it pushed everything.
Well, you still had a relatively unified fan base after TFA. Because, we can look back now and say this is a pretty shit movie. But nobody was offended by it. It was just like, compared to the prequels, it was fast-paced and everyone's really young and excitable and all that stuff. And there's like some decent like action scenes. Okay, it does the job. It's not very imaginative, but, maybe we needed a bit of predictability after the prequels. And you could have built on it. I guess that's the difference. Whatever you put out after that, the fan base would have been willing to give it a try. The problem is what you put out was TLJ. And after that, like, so many people were soured on Star Wars. It was just a no-win scenario. There's really nothing they could have made out of the third movie that would have won people back. Not enough of them anyway.
You remember how many fan theories spawned after The Force Awakens?
Yeah.
We were like alive with fan theories. We were like, this could go in so many different directions. We were excited at the possibilities. But then when they showed you where they were going, it was like, oh my God.
It created the illusion that there was intelligence behind this and that they had a plan, that there was some great mystery to unravel. When you opened that mystery box, there was going to be something really exciting inside it. And as it turns out, there was just a big steaming turd that Ryan Johnson had put there. And after that, the mystery box was empty. And so JJ had nothing to work with. And he's not the most imaginative guy in the world. So he had nothing he could do.
He had to mop up as well. Remember, there was like, hey, how about some holdover maneuvers? And he has a character with ADR say, nah, that's 1 in a million, you can't do that. It's like, ooh.
The best part is JJ comes in after TLJ and we're like, he's like, I'm gonna fix it. You made a worse film than TLJ. Like, I think Rise of Skywalker is worse than The Last Jedi. It maybe not be as offensive because of where we're, but I think Rise of Skywalker is just is a worse film than The Last Jedi. I think it is horrendous.
I seen it once, and that was when I saw it in the cinema, and I've never watched it since then. And I'm very cool with that fact.
That is a bad movie.
But I don't think he came. I don't think he came in like brimming with confidence, thinking, "Yeah, I can fix this." I think he was like forced back to do it. I think he was either given a ton of money or he was like threatened with severe career consequences, and reluctantly came back like, oh, "I'll give it a shot, I guess, but no promises, man." And
I don't know, horses on his face.
It's like you can imagine him like storming around the room, like, what have we got? We've done Death Stars already. What have we got? Star Destroyers? You know, that's not very intimidating. Well, let's have 10,000 Star Destroyers with a Death Star cannon attached to every one of them. Fine, go with it. We don't have time. Go.
I love the idea that in the boardroom, KK's like, "What have you got for me?" And he's like, "Okay. So you know Palpatine?" And she's like, "Yeah." You're like, "You know he died?" Yeah. He's like, "Well, what if like he didn't?" And just wait. She's leaving the room. He's like, wait. No, seriously, it's gonna be great. We'll bring back the original actor. It'll be great. People will love it.
Thing is, I don't think Kathleen Kennedy would even understand the implications of that. I think she'd be like, "What do you mean he was dead in the first place?" Like,
yeah.
See, my joke has layers. She was actually leaving the room. She was like, "Yeah, whatever, fine."
I picture it the other way, that they started off with that as like just like a stupid idea, and everyone in the writers' room said, "No, that's ridiculous." And then as time got closer and closer to the deadline, they had nothing else. They went, "Okay, we'll go back to that. We'll do that. That's fine."
They put it in. It's like that's our placeholder. If we can't think of anything, they'll do for now until we fill it in. And it's like they never did fill it in with anything else.
They're like Palpatine in the middle of a whiteboard. There's a couple of ideas like dinosaurs, time travel, Palpatine, fuck it.
It's interesting, and it ties into the Rings of Power thing, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But from the THR article there, it seems like the head person can make decisions, and everyone around them is thinking, "This is a terrible idea. This won't work. This is going to be an absolute disaster." And then when they tell them, "Yeah, I'll do whatever you say. So... Yeah. Every single person in the company be like, "I don't know why any of us are doing this. No one will like this." And then they just continue because everyone's so scared to actually tell this person the truth because of the power that they hold. And so I went from being, "I don't know why any of this is happening," to, "I completely understand." And I'd even go as far as saying it's not just the people that need to change. The entire corporation of Hollywood needs to change their idea that just because you're the head person doesn't mean that people can't tell you you're wrong. You actually need people to contradict you because that's how you get to the best place, rather than just having one person who is essentially like the god of whatever's being made.
Yeah,
hey, listen, I've done small independent projects, with my acting, and I've seen it on set where certain things are supposed to go a certain way, and people in creative that have say are like, "Yo, let's do this. Listen, this isn't really going to work," and then the person with the real say just says, "No, this is the way I want it done." The actors, the other guys, just like, and you just go. You're already being paid, and you just do it. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. That's why I really want to know who's responsible for some of this stuff. You know what I mean?
Listen to this clip I'm going to show you guys. So I've played this on many streams, and this is the funniest thing ever. So the title of the video is "Kathleen Kennedy thinks George Lucas is dead." Listen to what she says. Okay, listen to this. All right. Now let me remind you that George Lucas gave them a sequel trilogy outline, and they threw it away. So you got to share my screen.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, and so right here, listen to what Kathleen Kennedy says right here.
There isn't a day that goes by or went by as we were making a movie where we don't talk about George. It's the standard. What would George do? One of the things
he gave you a sequel trilogy outline. He's right. You could call him at any moment in time. You have his phone number.
I'm right here.
What would George do?
He gave you everything.
It's like peering through the window. Hello.
Yes,
I'm not dead.
And then they said, "Let's do the opposite."
Dude, it's like when Mark Hamill in some of the interviews was like, "I would have notes and ideas, and Ryan would just tell me, 'No, go away, it's fine, don't worry about it.'" Like, and KK would tell him to fuck off. It's just like, yeah. Out one ear and the other.
I mean, this is the same woman who said, like, "Oh man, it's not like we had books or anything to work from, like that would give us ideas for expanded universities and stuff." It's like,
guys, I got a question. What do you think made Mark Hamill go forward with doing a Luke Skywalker that he didn't agree with, because he said, I fundamentally disagree with the direction you're going with this character.
Was it contractually?
Yeah, breach of contract lawsuits would be it. Yeah. I mean, if it was me, I would have said, like, look, I'm gonna. You try and make me do this, I'm gonna suffer from a sudden case of depression or back problems or something, and I'm not gonna be able to perform the lines that you need me to do.
Yeah, because we have Mark Hamill. I don't like Mark Hamill as a dude. I think he's a psychopath when it comes to. Just go look at his Twitter account. He's a crazy person.
Really?
But
Okay,
oh my god, bro, he's insane.
You don't have to scroll far.
He's insane, but
he's quite political.
But separate of that, Mark Hamill's not like Harrison Ford. He's not an A-list celebrity. So you get a paycheck from Star Wars, you're gonna take a paycheck from Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's not like he has the pick of the litter. Harrison Ford, he can do whatever he wants, but Mark Hamill doesn't have that pull.
When it comes to Star Wars, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I figure he has more pull than Harrison, just coming to that series. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
I think because he was integral to that movie. Yeah, obviously, I don't know. They can't put a gun to his head and force him to go on set and say the lines, but
right.
I guess it's going to be breach of contract lawsuits that you would be facing, and it could potentially ruin it. But then what would come public is like, what they were essentially forcing him to do. They would have to say like, well, this is the script that we needed him to perform, and he wouldn't do it. How horrendous would that look for the studio? So it would potentially become a hugely embarrassing situation for everyone. But I think ultimately they could force him to do it, at least financially.
You got to keep in mind as well, to some degree, a lot of actors will be like, man, this seems like a bad thing, but sometimes we make these movies and then everyone's happy. So I don't know, I guess maybe I'm the crazy one in this scenario. Maybe I'm not getting it when you're filled with like this whole series of people who are very happy and making jokes and making the work. But then there's also the fact that he famously said like he was convinced to come on once Harrison did. Mm-hmm. And so
maybe when he was swigging the green titty milk, that wasn't him acting. That was just his pissed off snide expression.
I mean, I can honestly say like the behind the scenes footage of like him talking to Ryan, like all those scenes, he just looks like a broken man. He looks so fucking down and depressed. And it's like you have to, yeah. And you just have to, because it's funny. Like, well, from what I understand, the production on TLJ went relatively smoothly. Like, I'll say that at least about
happy and had good things to say about each other.
But I imagine Mark Hamill just like being off on his own between takes, just not wanting to talk to anyone. It's just like, no, I just want to get this done so I can leave.
There's so much passive aggression from him, and I can only imagine that's a result of he signed on expecting something, and then he read the script and he was like, oh shit. He even said that was his experience reading the TFA script. He was like, where am I? When do I do stuff?
He shows up like TFA. Willow at the end of the first episode.
The first TFA, the original drafts was written by the guy that wrote Toy Story 3. I can't remember his name right now. And you can look this up. You can find this on Google from Variety or whatever. But the first script, basically, Luke was a prominent figure in it. And Lucasfilm executive stepped in and said that Luke Skywalker was taking too much attention from the new characters when he was in the scenes. That is a quote. And they got rid of that screenwriter. And JJ and Lawrence Kasdan came in and kind of reworked all of it because Luke was taking too much attention from the new characters. That is a quote. Think about that.
Well, and we can,
Luke and Vader like really are the series. You know what I mean? And it's like saying we can't have Optimus Prime in this too much. He's taking away from too much the new.
He's taking away from Shield.
He's Prime. He's the series. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at where the actor's power is, because they have power in the negotiation right up until they sign the contract. The moment they sign that, they're owned by the company. You have to do whatever you're told. And how many times have we heard from like various authors where they're like, so they wanted me to do this and I didn't like it, but I gave way, and then they gave way again, and and by the end they end up with something which nothing like their original book or text they actually wanted. And so go on, I was supposed to finish.
Sorry. I was gonna say that, did Mark Hamill not sign on before Disney bought over Lucasfilm as well? Like, I'm sure he signed on when it was still under George Lucas. Like,
Yeah,
it was way back. It was like 2011 or something.
Yeah, he could have been tied into a pre-agreement that him and George had already made for the sequels, and then of course George signed over the sequel trilogy outline that he was working on, and then they revamped everything.
Because that is tragic. Because imagine that, like, he signed on under the pretense that he was going to potentially be doing sequels under George Lucas's outline for the sequels, like thinking he was going to do a completely different story. Lucasfilm gets bought over by Disney, and suddenly he's handed this absolute fucking garbage of a storyline that he has to then perform. Like, that is awful. Like, it's not like he even agreed to it then. It's just like, yeah, he was forced into doing something he had no clue what he was signing up for.
Exactly.